Started rhyme. Started to rhyme. Reading comics, toys are hella sick, hella whacking it. Taking bad hits, taking bad shit. Starter
And not that much ankle pivot. I want my ankle pivot.
Hey, what's up, you guys? Shartimus Prime here doing another Walking Dead trade paperback review on The Walking Dead Volume 9. Here we remain. These are issues 49 through 54. Man, it has been a long time since I've reviewed these. I really love reading The Walking Dead. My favorite comic book ongoing right now. Absolutely love it. Just saw the new episode yesterday. Episode 9, like the mid-season relaunch. Awesome episode. It's basically the same thing that happens in here. So this is matching up very, very nicely. The last thing that we see before this trade paperback is literally the last thing that we saw from the last episode of The Walking Dead on AMC, which was Carl and Rick walking away from the prison and seeing all the mayhem and everything in the background. So before I really get into talking about this, I'm not going to go through a whole cast of characters, but I will show you guys the build-a-picture. And here's our build-a-picture starting from trade number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then finally 9, just Rick and Carl. So this trade paperback starts out pretty much like how we saw the episode start out with, which is just Michonne walking around. And by the way, I'm going to give some spoilers, so if you didn't see the latest episode of Walking Dead, you may want to wait until you watch that and then come back and watch this. Don't forget to come back. Come back! Alright? And the first panel is really of Tyrese's head right here, and she finishes it off. So instead of Tyrese getting his head chopped off, it was Herschel that got his chopped off in the TV show. So anyway, you want to look at it, Anyway, she kind of just wanders off again, She looks at the same kind of thing that we saw on the TV show. Actually, Robert Kirkman did write the last episode, so of course, it's very, very similar. He had the comic book in mind when he was writing it. There's some differences, but, for the most part, it's very similar, which is very cool to watch, to see everything in live action. But you have Rick and Carl, just kind of getting by. Now, Carl in this is a lot younger than the Carl that we see in the TV show. In the TV show, he looks like he's like 13, or I think the actor is like 13 years old. Comic book Carl, I'm looking at a 10-year-old at most, a lot smaller kid. So this whole thing of him being on his own for a little while, it's a lot creepier. So anyway, Carl and Rick are in the woods, and then they come across a house, and they go and they bunk up over there, and Rick is just in bad shape. Now in the comic, he's been shot in the side. Eventually he just passes out inside the place, and Carl's just all by himself. Now the whole thing where Carl goes outside and lures some walkers away for whatever reason, or he took them really far back. Similar thing happens in the comic. Same thing, third walker creeps out of nowhere, and he gets really scared, and there's the dog pile of zombies on top of little Carl. That all happens. The whole thing where he's he's just trying to be on his own. He's being his own man. He resents his dad. He has this whole thing where he chews his dad out and tells him, "I don't need you anymore," and all that stuff happens right in the comic. It's very, very similar to what we saw on the TV show yesterday. Like I said, not a whole lot of differences. And I like that, because this is one of the reasons why I really like the character of Carl so much. He is my favorite character in the show. Now, the whole thing with Rick coming back, or kind of groaning and stuff, like you have this little scene right here, and you have Rick kind of groaning, and then you have Carl kind of freaking out, like pulling the gun on his dad and everything like that. That happens actually a couple times instead of just the once that happens. And yeah, you have the kid, "Just fucking wake up," and he's crying and stuff. So you can't protect anyone. Oh, that's beautiful. I think that was just a great little scene. So eventually he does wake up. Rick does totally wake up. And Carl does not actually do this thing where he submits and wants zombie Rick, or supposed zombie Rick, to eat him. That doesn't happen in the book at all. He says Carl before he pulls the trigger. Carl's ready to shoot him dead. I don't really like that change that they had done in the TV show. I wish they had kept that part like how it was in the book, because I don't like the idea of Carl going through all of this roller coaster of feeling very dependent, or feeling independent, and then realizing that he's not totally ready for that yet, and then to just submit. I didn't like that at all. I didn't feel like that was really true to the character, but you know, I don't know, it might be a nitpicky detail, but I didn't like that. Anyway, Rick gets up and they go wandering around looking for food and stuff. As they go wandering around looking for food, Rick hears the phone ring. Phone rings in the house. Rick picks up, and there's some people on the other end of the phone that are looking for just people. You know, they're just trying to figure out what's going on. As conversations go on, Rick realizes that the phone isn't really plugged into anything, and we have Rick talking to Lori, and he's gone completely nuts. So they gather up their food, and as they gather their stuff up and leave, Rick goes and grabs the phone and puts it in his backpack, and they bounce out with that. So it's not until just now that we actually have that whole thing with the telephone that we had seen, I think back in season 2 or 3 when they're still at the prison over in the TV show. So once they leave, they have this whole scene where Rick is teaching Carl how to drive. Very nice scene. There's a lot of touching moments in this that are really good to read. You really get to know the characters really well, and that's one thing I really like about The Walking Dead a lot, is that even though there's not a whole ton of action in this particular book, the mood and the character development is very, very strong. As the two of them are driving, it's kind of funny because Carl's driving, and then Rick is like, "No, hit the brake," and he's like, "Which one's the brake?" He doesn't even know which one and they hit a bunch of zombies and everything, to the point where they end up getting attacked. You know, the zombies start creeping in. Carl basically gets cornered by this zombie while he's inside the car, and who comes to save the day? None other but Michonne. Sword through the back of the head and in the mouth. Ooh, gory as hell, which is really cool. I like how they did that, because it's kind of like this whole thing where they, you know, he thinks he's so dependent, but he's really not. He not only needs Rick to help him, but he needs Michonne. And look how little he is. See, he's a much younger kid in this, which I like a little bit better that he's younger. And Michonne kills off the rest of the zombies and everything. After they hang out for a while and eat some of the food that they've gathered around the cars, a couple of people show up on horseback, and it's Maggie and Glenn, and they've regrouped with everybody. So now they all get together and they go back to Herschel's farm. That's where they're all going, and it's pretty neat. So everybody's come back together. All the survivors are there now. Herschel is very well alive. So is Dale. Dale is still alive in this. Instead of Herschel having the bum leg, it's Dale that's missing the leg right over here. Dale and Rick have a good long talk, and Dale's basically trying to let him know that, you know, Lori and Judith dying is not all his fault, and you know, he has to look forward, and, you know, Dale's very consoling. And then there's this scene where, you know, Rick catches Michonne talking to herself over in the corner. Like, what the hell are you doing? Rick knows what he saw, and then Rick pulls out the phone, letting her know that, hey, you're not the only one that's totally lost their mind. I'm crazy too. Which you would expect during a zombie apocalypse, man. Weird things are going to happen to people. It's going to get very strange. Then shortly afterwards, we have some complete strangers showing up to the farm. Now, this is where things really kind of take a turn for the book. Well, not really in a big way, but very interesting, because we get a brand new character. We get Sergeant Abraham, which is a really, really cool character. He fills in the shoes for Tyrese. We lost Tyrese, and now we have Abraham, who very much looks like a biker. Very interesting look on this guy. He kind of reminds me of James Hetfield from Metallica. You can see Abraham right over here, and there he is with his camo pants and his military boots. So this guy really has his stuff together. He's with Rosita and Eugene. Now Eugene claims to know what caused this whole thing. This whole zombie apocalypse. He knows what's going on. They're on a mission to go to Washington. The only reason why they stopped through the farm is to pick up supplies. And Abraham even says, you know, if I could, I would grab all you guys and just force you to go with me to Washington. And he basically eventually convinces Rick and everybody else in the group to go with them. He's saying this place isn't safe. You guys have a bunch of zombies coming through here. You're going to have even more. And there's this whole scene where Abraham's surrounded by zombies, and he just whoops a ton out of a bunch of zombies, man. It's badass. And you just see him go at it all by himself, just killing all these zombies. It's pretty awesome. Now, another cool thing about Abraham that I really like is that he delivers my favorite line of all time in a comic book. All right, don't judge me. All right, this is my favorite line, and I'm gonna read it to you over here. Okay, all right. Here's what Abraham says that I really like. Okay, here goes. The thing about smart motherfuckers is that sometimes they sound like crazy motherfuckers to stupid motherfuckers. God, I love that line. I don't know what it is, but that sums up a lot of things for me, and I really like that. I'm not a fan of ignorance, you know what I mean? I like to learn things, and I dislike people that hate to learn new things, and I think that's what slows everything down, is people that aren't willing to grow. Anyway, I digest. The book just pretty much wraps up with Abe talking everybody into leaving to head with them to Washington, and that's what they do. So they all pack up their stuff, and they get in the cars and everything, and they ride off into the sunset. Now Rick does give a little talk to Carl, saying, hey, you know, don't turn your back on anybody, like keep your back up against the wall, you know what I mean? Like, we don't really know these people, we can't really trust them. As it does happen with all of the other greets that happen throughout the Walking Dead series. Whenever people meet each other, everybody's very timid, or especially this group and Rick and everything. So, as it should be. I really liked this read a lot. It's not the very coolest read. There's not all the crazy action, but we get a lot of great character development. And I totally recommend you guys read these books. I just spoil everything in these videos, but really, you owe it to yourself to read them because they are that awesome. I totally love it, man. Alright guys, I hope you liked this review. Hopefully I have another one sooner than later. It's been a long time since I've posted one of these. I think I'm going to do a review of the Carl figure this week. I might. I don't know. I have New York Toy Fair coming up at the end of the week. We'll see. I hope you guys liked the video. I will catch you later. Peace.